Okay, so the latest book, entitled God Must Be Sleeping, is a chronological event from birth up until the age of 23 when I graduated from university. And what that takes the reader through is the experience of a victim who has gone through every abuse imaginable, suffered through the after effects of the abuse, and then received intervention indirectly through massive nervous breakdown, worked through that, focused on education, focused on healthy decisions, giving back, always keeping in mind more healthy alternatives, and with the therapeutic help of organizations like the Women's Center and other professionals in the field of abuse prevention and treatment, I fast forward to today where I show the reader what can happen when you stick to a very healthy path, you choose the right alternatives. The intervention is absolutely vital. That's why funding for organizations such as Women's Center are critical. And I end with my graduation from my undergraduate university, which is light years away from where I started at 11, where I couldn't read, write, or even tie my own shoes. I end up graduating from university. And now at this point in my life, I'm sharing with anyone who will certainly listen the opportunity to give back, which is the last phase of any experience where you can actually help someone else.
I know you speak about going through every type of abuse imaginable and having some sort of breakdown before going for help. Can you tell us about maybe, I know that you spoke about your mom, your alcoholic mother, and foster care, so maybe talk about like where the abuse happened and maybe what age you were when you went for that help?
My primary abuser was my mother, and that was the first 11 years of my life. When removed from that abusive environment, I ended up in one abusive environment after another because I'm part of the Child Protection Services system, a system that at that particular time had a lot of opportunities to get better, and they've made leaps and bounds in terms of getting better since then, but this was in the 70s. So I ended up in foster homes, shelters, where there was more abuse, family relatives where abuse begets abuse, so there were individuals that I was certainly exposed to that were abusive. And then there are two ways individuals actually seek intervention, if it happens at all. With me, it was indirect through a massive breakdown my sophomore year at university. So the normal pressures of university life in general, with never dealing with the after effects of the abuse that I went through for the first 18 years of my life, came crashing down, and here I am now suffering through nervous breakdown, forced intervention through a program just like you have here in Marquette through the Women's Center, working with professionals, and then that began me on a very healthy therapeutic path. And then there are those individuals, certainly more proactive than me, they don't wait for the nervous breakdown, they seek help immediately, and those individuals certainly have a better chance than those who don't. The earlier you seek intervention, the earlier you deal with the abuse, the after effects, the better your chances of becoming a functional individual, functional member of society, and eventually giving back to that society and not being a drain on the very society in which you're a part of. So the important thing to remember is abuse is often seen as a social issue, but it's a socioeconomic issue. It increases our taxes, it drains our coffers, it decimates societies. It should be looked at also as a disease because the after effects have clear direct correlations to medical illnesses, manifesting itself in me as an example, two of which were hysterical blindness and being paralyzed. So I honestly felt that as a child I couldn't walk or I couldn't see from time to time. Now these are real manifestations, biological effects to the abuse. So there's a direct correlation between the medical problems that abuse carries So then we have the medical, we have socioeconomic, it decimates societies, it increases our taxes. So when I discuss any abuse prevention and treatment program, I don't focus on just what happened to me, because many people suffer from abuse of any kind. I focus on what happens next. How do we get better? How do we eventually become functional members of society and give back? And certainly live a healthy and happy life as best we can.
Why do you think that so many people who fall victim to abuse don't speak out?
Oh, the first indication, the absolute first answer would be the crushing weight of shame, especially for a male. So my primary abuser is my mother. I was sexually abused. The weight of shame and embarrassment that happened to me as a male was the very reason why I kept it a secret for so long. The same mentality, the victim mentality that, one, it's embarrassing, it's shameful, two, it's my fault, three, no one's going to listen. Those are the three main reasons why people don't speak out, and why it's so absolutely important that we continue to talk about it, like we're doing right now in this interview. The Women's Center is continuing to work to get people to be more open and honest about it, and get away from the victim mentality and more towards a survivor mentality. And that has to start also from the top down. Governments have to revisit their agendas and put human rights at the forefront of any agenda. And that's abuse of any kind. And I speak on behalf of abuse of power, not just physical, domestic violence or sexual abuse, human trafficking, but abuse of power, because that's where it all begins, that control over the victim.
Okay, I'm just changing my camera angle. Okay, and finally, what do you hope to do by speaking to different groups? I mean, obviously you've traveled far, telling your story. What are you hoping to accomplish, or I guess for even those watching, what kind of message you're hoping to share with them?
The message is that if we continue to provide any type of help, any type of functional support, and recognize people who are abused, recognize victims, and help bring them to a state where they are more functional human beings and they're contributing members to society, we literally make the world a better place, a more functional place, a healthier place, a safer place. My primary message is give back. Let's continue to do all we can to combat abuse of any kind, because by doing nothing, it would be absolutely worse. But by doing something, we have an opportunity and certainly the possibilities of a more beautiful world. And I'm not asking that we, and I'm certainly not convinced we'll ever wipe abuse off the face of the earth. However, just give individuals a fighting chance to get better, to become functional individuals, to have a happy and healthy life. And by addressing it and pushing more and more towards the honest conversations and the honest and open dialogue with regard to abuse at every level of any kind, we are literally reducing our tax base. We're increasing our ability to be more socioeconomic and stable, and we're just happier and healthier people. It's a better neighborhood, and thus a better world.
Is there anything else that you would want to say?
I did not make it this far alone, and that's something also I want to share with everyone. There's no way any of us can make it alone. I personally did not, and the very reason I'm here talking to you today is because there are many wonderful people out there that were there with me, helping me along the way, that came before me and will come after me. So definitely we're not in alone, and there's hope. Definitely hope.